If it's in Abuja, you get to find out. But Osaze Efe is a photographer, a renowned photographer at that, and he is with us on the show this morning. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So, photography, I know it's an art.
Yeah.
It's mixing of colors. A lot of things happen before you can have it printed on, any way you want it printed. So tell us, what is this art, and why is this so beautiful, and why is it so difficult for a lot of people to relate to the end product of photography?
First, visual storytelling, it's a core part of who we are as human beings. If you can take your mind back, way back to human history, you would see that cavemen from the beginning of time painted on the walls of their cave, expressing either their agricultural or climatic or everyday life. Just a way to archive what their experiences were at the time, and to be able to pass to coming generations what they experienced at that moment. So the art of using pictures to communicate ideas, values, identity has been very core of who we are. For example, even right now, it's very natural for us. You hear a word, a certain picture comes to mind. So human being, by the way we are wired by God, we are very pictorial. And coming down to recent times, of course, no story is what it's made if there is no picture backing it on social media. You could read as many things you want to read on social media, but it comes alive when there is a video or a still image that backs it up, whether for good or for scandal. So who we are, it's pictorial, and pictorial is who we are. So for us as human beings, photography has so far been very particular to us and in us over time.
Okay. Some people think it's just, taking a camera and then you click and then something comes out of it. And that's creating some kind of image or this kind of message that is just what it is. A lot of people do not understand it. So what's the art that makes photography very beautiful? Thank you.
What makes photography beautiful, it's not photography in itself. What makes photography beautiful, it's the mind of the image maker. So I would, for example, have a bias for a thing, and I then use photography as a vehicle to traffic my biases. So I may be, okay, there was a newspaper headline I saw this morning that spoke about sex abuse, child trafficking, and all of that. Now, as a person, that resonated with me. But because I'm not a writer, so what came to my mind was, how do I tell this story more and call global attention to these issues and see how we can bring about positive change in this aspect of the society? Then I pick up my lens, I pick up my camera, and I tell a story using pictures. So photography in itself, it's not the thing. It is it being a vehicle that traffic is certain ideas and beliefs, biases for good or for bad of the individual. So it's more like a biro. The biro itself, it's not what makes the difference. It's how the writer is able to communicate its thoughts using that biro. So the camera, photography, it's like money. It's not good, it's not bad. It is what you do with it. So the art of visual storytelling, it's about, like I said earlier, who we are and how we are able to use it to, I will start another example. These days, you see fake news everywhere. Not because the news in it, not because news, the concept of news is bad, but because you have mischievous people. You have people who are doing bad things. They leech on the vehicle of news and use it to perpetuate falsehood and misinformation. Meanwhile, you turn on your TV and you go to a station like Trust TV and you listen to well-informed, researched information because you want to know what is happening in the society as it is. So it is not necessarily about the news. It's about, for example, a very reputable organization like Trust TV that wants to properly inform the society because of their reputation as an organization. So in the same way, photography. So because I have values, I wouldn't want to misinform the society using my lens. I would inform the society of the reality because of my value. So that's the way photography is too.
Speaking about value, you mentioned, what about, you know, a lot of photographers bringing, no, let's not generalize, say some photographers creating Photoshop that would actually tell the wrong story. Now, some might tell the right story, but on several occasions, it's always on the negative side. What's your thoughts on that?
Photoshop has changed the art of photography. So, for example, when I hardly take pictures, even though I'm a photographer, I don't like taking my own pictures. So I take pictures, and sometimes people do Photoshop and they remove my travel marks. And I'm like, no, that is what defines me. By the time you remove the travel mark, I can be mistaken for a black American. I can be mistaken for a black Canadian. But with this travel mark, first, people will know that I'm Nigerian. My identity, my roots is very critical. But the argument then becomes, of which I've seen in real life, am I Ibera? Am I Benin? Am I Shekiri? Because of my tribal mark. But if you Photoshop this off, so you strip me of my identity. So what I tell my colleagues that use Photoshop is that, see, use Photoshop to enhance the reality, not to change the identity. So I have birth markings of parts of my body. So if I take a picture and that shows that birth and you remove it, you are removing a part of me. So Photoshop, Oyibo people did Photoshop to support, not to change, to support the art of storytelling. So for example, we can take a picture of us right now and turn it to black and white, particularly in editorial. So editorial images, the least you can do for editorial images is to turn it to black and white, as expected by the editor. So if you take a picture and you change anything, it becomes a lie. Because half-truth in itself is a lie, except where it expressly asks that crop it this way or turn it to monochrome. Anything outside of that is falsehood. I have seen pictures of people that I know, particularly ladies, I'm sorry to say this, particularly ladies, and I'm like, babe, I know you in real life. This is what the Photoshop has turned into.
Oh my God. Okay, so now, you know, talking deep into photography and photos, you know, it reminds me that, you know, you have a knowledge of photojournalism, you know, using of editors and all of that. But, you know, streamlining it now, I talked about photo festival. And somebody might be wondering, what do they even do in photo festival? Is it not to hang pictures and all of that? Sure. Take us through that. What does a photo festival look like?
How did the idea start? Like, what? Someone would just sit up. You know, when you see things or an end product, people are always wondering, how did it start? How did you picture something like this, and how productive it is?
Photography is very productive on many levels, socially, morally, and economically. When done right, like everything in life, when done right, it adds financial, it makes financial contribution to the person, like everything in life. Every religion says that if you're hardworking in what you do, you know, you'll be rewarded by the Almighty. So, photo festival, it's a global event that happens everywhere. So there's Paris Photo, there is New York Photo Festival, excuse me. There is Abuja Photo Festival. What Photo Festival does is to bring the society and immerse it in photography and immerse photography in the society. Photo Festival generally, it's at least supposed to be at least a month, where every part of the, for example, let's say Abuja, for example, now. So you have art exhibitions at Beggar Bridge. You have art exhibition around Wuse Market. You have art exhibitions in different strategic locations of the society, where people come to see the power of images. So like I mentioned earlier, sex trafficking, child trafficking is an issue. So a photographer goes to, let's say, Maiduguri and documents stories of people. Because I live in Abuja, I live in the posh part of Abuja, and most of the news that I hear is on, let's say, CNN, for example. I am hardly not knowing what's happening in our local community. So a photographer goes to places like Maiduguri and documents stories of sex trafficking and host an exhibition. in a part of the society that awakens the public to the realities in locations that they are not even aware of. So what Photo Festival does is to bring the society, bring the public, bring the people, and bring photography, and let us look at what is happening around us. Usually there are photo exhibitions. Photo exhibitions are at the core of photo festivals. Then there are workshops. So this photographer comes and he uses his art to advocate, whether for climate change, whether for availability of good quality water, or girl child education, or sex trafficking, as the case may be. So he engages with the participants, who are not just only photographers, who are also government officials, because they implement policies, development of officials who influence how policies are formulated, civil society organizations who advocate for particular policies to be implemented. So Photo Festival is a bouquet of the society, of all the stakeholders and the creative community, using the vehicle of photography. So it's usually long. And what Photo Festival also does is to build capacity. One of the challenges that I have seen my colleagues struggling with is the issue of ethics. So, and ethics on many levels. So first, it could be ethics of you give a photographer money to do a job for you, and he just vanish, and you won't find him anywhere. You'll be chasing him around. Then the ethics of the art of storytelling, not using it as a propaganda. Awaken the morality, the sense of morality and consciousness of the artist. So what Photo Festival does is to now bring the creative community and say, let's talk about how we can use imagery as a force for social good. Because trust me, as much as we talk, what amplifies narrative and trigger our emotions are images. So we may talk about everything, but when the images come to life, you now see, whoa. So I will use the Arab Spring as an example. This random guy went to look for a job. There was no job. He set himself afire. And in Tunisia, some 10, 12 years ago, he set himself afire and he came to the internet. The images, the videos made of the young man came to the internet, and there was riots. Then that led to riots in Tunisia, I think, riots in different parts of Arab nations, and that was what led to the death of Gaddafi. That was what led to the war in Syria. Because there was, that in Tunisia, Egypt, Syria, Libya, because a young man had a social issue with unemployment, set himself afire because he couldn't get a job to be able to take care of himself and his family. That picture, the video came on the internet, and the youth of that country latched on it, and it became what it became. And I'll use NSAS for example. As much as we all were hearing about it, what triggered us the most were either the things we saw firsthand or the things we saw online that triggered us, and that added to what led to NSAS. So imagery is powerful, and what Photo Festival does is to reawaken the consciousness of the power of pictures in our society.
That's powerful. If you had doubts of getting into a photo festival, this is a very convinced way of making me drop everything and just look forward to the next photo festival. That's a lot.
It is a lot. It is indeed. So looking at stories, you mentioned that of course a wrong picture could paint a different story and narrative, but how do one tend to depict or grab the actual story of photography?
That's fact checking now.
That's fact checking.
First, it's important that as individuals, as creatives, you read. The information that we have is the foundation that what we do is built on. When I see a picture, maybe because of what I do, a photographer, documentary photographer, and art consultant to United Nations and organizer of Abuja Photo Festival, I understand how images can be skewed. How images can be, can be skewed. But because I try my best to read about everything, so when I see an image, what first comes to my mind is to contextualize it. Put it in a context that, okay, what is actually the original truth? What are the issues we are dealing with here? Not just being swayed by this image, but first, what are the issues? Because that image is fitting into a narrative. So when I understand the context of the narrative, I'll be able to now look at the picture and question it. I'm like, Oga, this picture that you took, what agenda is it really serving? Now, the picture itself may not necessarily be right or wrong, but it may be pushing an agenda. So the question is, what agenda is it pushing? So we can look at it from that angle. And then secondly, there are technologies you can use to subject an image to read the metadata encoded in an image. So every image has when it was made. Every image has the camera that was used to make it. Every image has those details. So if I see an image and somebody says Osaze is at Trust TV, and they show this image. This is not my first time here. I think I was here some time ago. Yeah. And they bring out the picture, and maybe they use the picture of the first time I appeared on TV, and they said I was Trust TV. Yes, I'm here today, but that image that I appeared at Trust TV station, was it actually of me today? It might be of me the previous time. So what I now do is to take that image, subject it to some technical analysis, you know, and check it and say, okay, this picture of a truth he was at this studio at this time, but not on April 8th, I think, 2023. It might be July 24th, 2021. So artistically and technically, there are ways you can actually look at a picture and say this is right or this is not right.
Okay, let's talk on photos. We know that we tend to take pictures most times as memories, you know, in order to keep parents, for their kids to see. And even it has become so common now that people take, say, example, pictures of their pregnancy live until the birth, the kids at this age, and this age, and this age. And when a child is grown, you want that child to also show their own children, like grandchildren. But most times you would see photos are fading away. Some would be maybe from the sweat, from heat, and all that. So how can one preserve, because photo is a good memory, how can one preserve photos?
Thankfully, there are technological ways that can be done. Pictures taken now, we shouldn't have issues with preserving it, because you have Google Link. They can put a picture and it will be there forever. There are cloud technologies that you can use to save your digital images. But if it's pictures taken before now, you know, printed 5x7, 8x10 or whatever it is, two things that can be done. You can resnap those images. You can scan, you can resnap them and make them digital and save them in digital files. Then secondly is to, as much as possible, keep them away from water and heat. So back in my undergraduate days, around 15, 17 years ago, I took a lot of pictures in my university days. Pictures while in school, pictures outside. But then I didn't know about photography as it is now. So the pictures were put together somewhere. Then when we lost our dad, my tradition came from a polygamous home. The eldest son from the other woman, of course, became the head of the family. My mom had to leave and all of that. So there was house moving, and all of those images, all of those pictures, all of them in their hundreds. The last time I went home to Benin, where my mom now stays, most are destroyed because they didn't know about how to preserve. So water, heat, all of those escape. And now I look back and I'm like, what a waste. So if I have access to those images now, so I'll resnap them, scan them, or just keep them properly in a way that heat and water cannot. But the best bet remain snapping or scanning them and keep them as digital files that will last forever. The quality, nothing will happen to it. It will just be almost exactly the same, particularly if you scan and just keep them.
Let me go retrospect now. I understand that our parents preserved pictures. You cannot believe that my mom has a picture of me when I was born, when I was 3 months, when I was 1 year, when I was 2. And these pictures have not been destroyed. And that's because my mom has this album. It's a kind of plastic. I don't know with this album where there's got synthetic album. You just flip through and then you just put by 5x7. The other ones, I have all of these pictures. Where this album transcend into? Where are they right now? I have to ask you because you're the one who's closer now to know where
the first albums, are changing. What you just described now, which is also a very good way to preserve, it's been a while I saw that.
Okay, jumbo size. They ask you that jumbo size, small size.
Yes. Those albums are still in the market. They are very rare now. But they're still in the market. But what people do mostly now is photo books. But even photo book is not as resilient as that album. Because after a while, photo book, the pages starts gumming together, and by the time you want to open it, it tears. So those albums are still there, and you can still find them around UTC, Wuse Market, and it's a very, very good way. But keep them away from heat, keep them away from water.
So this is the time where my mom has extra, so I think I'll just have to go put them in a box somewhere.
Please keep those pictures.
So I can actually use them for my kids as well.
That's really interesting.
Okay, so now painting now. Some people believe that you can actually preserve a picture, like painting it or even using a paint on it. How does that work?
Yes, painting, yes, but painting is not as specific, as detailed as you would have a picture. So you can paint a picture of us seated here, but there are specific details in terms of shades, in terms of color, in terms of patterns, in terms of texture, that you have to be a paint artist at a very higher level to be able to get some specifics. But a picture, it's what it is. You see it for the only thing between picture and real life, it's not moving. So yes, you can preserve a picture by painting, but it's not
accurate
it's not as detailed as it is. AI, yes, artificial intelligence, which is changing how stories are being made, can play a role, but a photograph is a photograph.
Okay, so the photo festival now, is it you've explained what it looks like. I know you have a picture, but a lot of artists out there, there's photographers, upcoming photographers will be wondering, okay, how do I get in? How do I do this? How do I do that? Do you even teach people how to take a photograph or how to become a photographer, a professional photographer?
Like I mentioned earlier, at one of the things at the photo festival, it's master classes. So for example, I would use Abuja Photo Festival. There are master classes for individuals who are interested in photography.
During the festival?
Yes, during the festival. It's a week-long event.
Okay.
It's a week-long. So you're interested in photography and you want to understand the fundamentals, the basics. So there's a class. You're interested in photography, you cannot afford the camera, or you don't want to use camera, you just want to use a smartphone. There is a class. So for DSLRs people, DSLR are the professional cameras we use, there is a class, basic photography class. Therefore, for people who are interested in taking better pictures or making videos with their phone, there is a class. Therefore, mid-level, you want to scale your photography, you understand the fundamentals, you understand compositions, the triangle of light, and all of that, but you want to scale it up. There is a class. So what Photo Festival does is to expose you to the entire value chain of photography, even business of photography, because you need to be able to pay your bills to be able to think straight and create. It's hard to be hungry and be creative. So there's also the business aspect of photography that is also taught at the Photo Festival. Then, like I mentioned, there's also an aspect where ethics of photography, ethics in terms of character, ethics in terms of visual storytelling, that is also taught. So it's an entire bouquet. So what we usually tell people that, see, photo festivals is not just for photographers. if you think photography is not important, let there be a scandalous image of you on the internet. That is when you know that photography is important. So you don't have to get there to know the power of photography. So come to Photo Festival. Because what it does is it brings the creatives, it brings the social advocates, it brings the development sector, and it brings government all together, and now use photography as a framework to have societal conversations so that everybody can be aware. So we build skills at the Photo Festival. We fine-tune, we hone talents at the Photo Festival, and we also let people know the power of photography. So you learn at the Photo Festival. I sometimes see my colleagues at events, they will wear, I'm sorry to say, slippers. They go to shoot for a client, and they're dressed shabbily. And I asked them, do you attend Abuja Photo Festival? And they're like, no, I'm hustling. I'm like, take out, even if it's just a day, it's an entire week, take out one day, come sit at the Photo Festival, hear stuff. Even branding as a creative, how to brand yourself. One of the things that has helped a few of us, it's not because necessarily we know how to take pictures better, but we just know how to present ourselves. So that shapes the narrative. So I don't introduce myself as a photographer, I introduce myself as an art consultant. Then that changes how we talk about the amount I would tell you that I charge for taking pictures. But these things were taught to me. I learned these things at the Photo Festival. So the Photo Festival builds your skills, it builds your mindset, and it shapes you as an individual in photography, not just as a photographer, an individual in photography, because there is more to your life than being a photographer.
That's true. Well, thank you so much, Osaze Efe. We really enjoyed, having you on our show today.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming.
And with that, of course, we've come to the end of today's Daybreak Extra. We hope that, of course, that you enjoyed today's episode with us. I am Sumaya Abubakar. Stay blessed, and please do stick around because our sport, of course, would be coming on the show. See you next time.
Thank you very much. My name is Martia Umar. I hope to be here. When next, I do not know, but thank you very much for having me. All right, so it's a close. We'll see you another time.